There are people who enter a room without saying a word, yet something shifts. They don't seek attention, they don't perform kindness, still their presence unsettles the air. Some feel comforted by them, as if standing near a quiet flame, but others tense up, withdraw. Smile politely while their energy retreats. No one talks about it. But something deep and unspoken happens between the one who carries light and the ones who have not yet faced their own darkness. Carl Jung called this the shadow's reaction to unconscious light. The empath, the honest soul, the one who refuses to wear a mask, they become a mirror. And not everyone likes what they see in that reflection. Have you ever felt hated simply for being yourself? Not because you were loud, cruel, or demanding, but because your presence, your honesty, your way of feeling deeply made others uncomfortable in ways they couldn't explain. This is not your fault. It is the inevitable cost of light. When authenticity walks into a space, the unconscious begins to stir, and those who have buried parts of themselves, their wounds, their longing, their fears, may see you not as a gift, but as a threat. And still, all you did was show up with your heart open. An empath doesn't just feel emotions. They absorb the atmosphere of a room, the silence between words, the tension no one else mentions. Their nervous system is wired for resonance. They don't need people to confess what they're feeling. They sense it. Jung saw this not as hypersensitivity, but as a heightened state of awareness, a psychic antenna, a mirror, clean and quiet, reflecting whatever stands before it, even the parts others work hard to conceal. And that's where the discomfort begins. When someone meets an empath, they meet more than a person. They meet their own unspoken grief, their self-doubt, their repressed longing, all surfacing without invitation. And you felt this tension, haven't you? Someone laughs at your kindness, shrugs off your concern. You sense the wall going up, though they insist nothing's wrong. And you wonder, did I say too much? Feel too much? Am I too much? But the truth is, your presence is revealing something in them they're not ready to see. To stand before an empath is to stand before a mirror that doesn't flatter or distort. It simply reflects. This reflection becomes unbearable for those who've spent a lifetime crafting a persona, hiding from pain, silencing their inner child. So instead of turning inward, they turn against you. Not because you harmed them, but because you saw them. And that kind of seeing, quiet, accurate, unfiltered, can feel like exposure, can feel like threat. But Jung reminds us this is not about blame, it's about projection. And unless you understand this mechanism, you'll carry resentment that was never yours to hold. Carl Jung taught that every human being carries a shadow, the unconscious repository of all we've denied, rejected, or buried. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply the parts of ourselves we couldn't accept. So we pushed them into the dark. But here's the paradox. The more someone hides their shadow, the more violently it reacts when confronted with light. And no light is more confronting than yours. The empath's presence, grounded in feeling and truth, doesn't just soothe, it reveals, it awakens, it stirs what others have spent years trying to forget. This is why resentment arises, not because you've done anything wrong, but because unconsciously your presence whispers, there's more to you than this mask, more to feel, more to heal. And not everyone is ready to hear that. You may have seen it happen. They pull away from you, mock your softness, twist your motives, and inside you wonder, why does my care feel like a threat to them? Because in their psyche, your authenticity is an accusation, not spoken, not intentional, but deeply felt. Your capacity to love without armor confronts their refusal to be vulnerable. Your emotional depth makes their surface life feel hollow. Your inner clarity exposes their confusion. And so they project. They resent the mirror, not because it's distorted, but because it's honest. Jung called this dynamic shadow projection, when a person transfers their hidden fears and shame onto another, turning the innocent into a symbol of what they can't yet integrate. It's not personal, but it feels personal. And unless you understand this, you'll mistake their rejection for truth and begin rejecting yourself. But the real truth is this: they don't hate you, they hate what you awaken, and the only way they know how to silence that awakening is to push you away. There is a reason the empath feels so deeply, not because life spared them, but because it carved them open. Carl Jung saw this figure again and again in dreams, in myths, in the lives of his patients. The wounded healer. The one who knows pain so intimately, they become a sanctuary for the pain of others. This is the archetype many empaths unconsciously embody. From a young age, they were told they were too sensitive. They learned to read moods, to anticipate conflict, to make themselves small so others could feel safe. Over time, they confused being loved with being useful. And maybe you did too. Maybe you gave without being asked, stayed when your soul whispered to leave, forgave before anyone said sorry, because deep down, you believed that your light had to earn its place. You became the listener, the fixer, the one who holds space for everyone, but no one asked if you were okay. And here lies the most painful part. Those who resent your light will still keep coming back to it, not to cherish it, but to feed from it, because you soothe their unrest, even as they undermine your peace. Jung warned of this pattern. The empath becomes the martyr, slowly vanishing beneath the weight of other people's needs and shadows. But love that costs your soul is not love, it's self-erasure. To live this way is to be surrounded by people who adore your light but never protect your flame, people who say they admire your depth but secretly wish you'd stop feeling so much, so often, so loud. And one day, you wake up drained, hollow, aching. Not from what was taken, but from what you gave without boundaries. This is not your fault, but it is your turning point. Because there comes a moment when even the healer must learn you were never meant to disappear just to make others comfortable. The empath walks a narrow path between visibility and invisibility, warmth and weariness, giving and forgetting to receive. Carl Jung often spoke of individuation, of the journey to become whole. But wholeness requires something the empath rarely grants themselves: boundaries. To carry light is not enough. You must also know how to protect it. So ask yourself, how many times have you shrunk your truth so someone else could feel comfortable? How often have you questioned your worth just because someone else couldn't see it? How long have you held your breath to avoid making others uncomfortable with your presence? And yet, all along, your light was never the problem. Their discomfort was a signal, not of your failure, but of the shadow your light stirred awake. There will always be those who resent what you carry, who misunderstand your kindness, who drain your warmth and give nothing in return. Let them. Because your task is not to convince the world of your worth. Your task is to stand in it, quietly, wholly, unapologetically. Jung taught that when you stop performing and start being, the right people appear. Those who don't just admire your light, but carry their own. So tend your inner fire, not with guilt, not with fear, but with reverence. You are not too much. You are simply what the world forgot how to hold. And for those who are still hiding behind their masks, still silencing their feelings, still projecting their shadows, your presence is a mirror they may someday thank. Until then, keep walking. Shine not to be seen, but because that's what you were born to do. If this spoke to you, tell us below. Have you ever felt quietly resented just for being real? Share your story in the comments. Send this to someone who needs to remember who they are. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're not done uncovering the truth that lives in your shadow.